then the task becomes invariably, if you look at history, look at the history, any history, history of this country, history of any country, the task becomes how do you break your isolation, especially in the initial stages, because the movement is necessarily a minority movement, a movement of a few people. It starts off small, but your struggle becomes how do you break your isolation? If the struggle of the blacks was only the struggle of the blacks that had no consequence, social consequence, then that's so be it. But it did have wider significance. So the struggle became how do you prevent your isolation or break your isolation in terms of winning over the mass of the people to your position so you can be successful. Today, the tendency is for people to proceed in their own particular neighborhood, their own community, self-righteously, as if they're going to be able to move the struggle, and they play right into the isolation. Well, historically, this has been something that leaders who have been successful and movements that have been successful, they've had to operate against. And that is, how do you link your immediate concerns to the concerns of the majority of the people? And symbols are very important historically. If you don't know the history, then the symbol don't make any, it doesn't make any sense. But if you know the history of struggle that went on in terms of the context of what this bell meant, it means a lot. People died, fighting for freedom, and this bell became the symbol of it. So it means something to the history of this country, and it means something in terms of the psyche of the majority of the people. So the fight for that symbol becomes very important if you're going to break your isolation. History also records that before a force is able to attack you successfully, they have to first isolate you. And you can either have a politics and tactics that plays into that isolation, and therefore, have your defeat, guaranteed. Or you can figure out how to connect your particular concerns with the concerns and psychology of the American people. And the questions of freedom, of rights, these are part of American psychology, and if you don't understand that psychology, it's going to be very difficult for you to break your isolation. And I know with the Kensington Welfare Rights Union, we were definitely isolated. I mean, we were a bunch of welfare recipients, a bunch of blacks, or whatever, all the criminal, underclass, all those terms were epithets that was thrown at us to isolate us. As a matter of fact, Kensington was part of North Philly, and that whole community was called the Badlands. And it really served to isolate any struggle and delegitimize any struggle that was operating within that whole community. So we would reach out into history to see what was the thinking of American people that we could tap into to break our isolation. When we moved into the church, we picked up the study of the Underground Railroad. And we saw what the slaves did. And we saw how they were able to gain notoriety and gain support and alliances. And so we picked up that term and also we used it just for ideological fortitude, because it was a very fearful thing to do what we were about to do. And we did that on a number of occasions. And one of the occasions was that it was a winter period, one of these winters where the junk was turning away homeless mothers and babies into a cold winter. And we wanted to bring attention to the issue, so we decided to move in to Liberty